width there off that curve, but it's raising over that big the actual there, prop. 5 degrees pitch.
Full stop. just made a path through there. Yeah.
Well, I'll do it.
But,
I'll show you before I get it. Just put it up. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's it. Why are there so many? Why are there so many joints in it? Why are there so many fucking joints in it? Exactly. Thank you.
It's well balanced. You've got to pin the... Yeah.
Yeah, the nose comes up pretty easy.
It does, very easy. And that's the only thing that I find with it is the nose comes up and you actually got to put quite a bit of forward pressure.
Right.
Get the nose back down.
Yep.
But then as the airspeed builds up, then you can let the nose come, and it's very easy, well I found after a while, to fly with the nose just 6 inches off the ground. You know, and then it just levitates.
it's CNBC, and that's the primary. All these procedures are designed to complement the see and avoid principle, including flight radio. But don't forget, it's not a CTFR, radio's not mandatory, so you don't have to use it. And that's why it's a see and be seen type of thing. So you've got to be aware when you're within the vicinity of an aerodrome, and that's about 3 miles, you've got to be looking at all ears and eyes sort of thing. Yeah.
So the three joining is joining crosswind, joining downwind, and joining if you're coming from this angle and you want to go down, say from here you're going to join 25, downwind 25.
Yeah.
So you're coming from there. You
Come in at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah, and that's called what? Joining downwind anyway.
Yeah.
Going mid-downwind.
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 Yeah. The reason for that is the fixed wings in particular. You make the call momentarily before you turn, so that you're in a bank. So anyone that's on downwind or crosswind can actually see because you're now in a plan form.
You have to say left base, right base, something like that?
No, it's a left-hand circuit, the stock standard, so you can say left base, it's not a requirement. But if you want to clarify things, yeah, left base, if you're happy with that, go for it, not a problem. You're better to give too much information as long as you don't clutter up the traffic rather than too little. Next call is turning final with intentions. Turning final, runway 25, full stop, Wongan Hills. Too easy.
You don't have to give intentions when you're on down on a base, do you? Because I do
The
anyway.
book says on final, but do it wherever you want to do it.
So I do it each leg just to, because sometimes I do change my mind or whatever. So.
Yeah, well, that's all right, no worries. As long as someone knows, because if you're going to do a stop and go or a touch and go, the guy behind you can be right up your ginger as such. But if you're going to do a full stop and then continue to taxi, he needs to position himself further out. Otherwise, there'll be a conflict. If there's a potential conflict, go around. Don't forget, the go around procedure is to establish yourself in the climb, turn to the right, and track down the right-hand boundary of the airfield, climbing to 500 feet.
That's the dead side, isn't it?
That's the dead side,
So
yeah.
if it's right-hand circuit,
Yeah. But you always turn right. So on a missed approach, it's always a right-hand turn regardless of the dead or live side. So if there happen to be...
right-hand circuit, you're actually still turning.
You're actually operating in the live side. We discussed this when they changed it, but they wouldn't come to the party.
Coming head on, turn right.
Always.
Always right.
Where there's a conflict, both aircraft turn right. I think with that one, it's never a problem.
What's the reasoning for being
Because it allows you, and don't forget, in normal fixed wings, if it's evolved, the pilot commands it's on the left-hand side. So the reason for it is that you're on the right-hand side of the runway, the pilot's on the left can look down, check who's on the runway, if there's another high performance aircraft moving this approach, or whatever, or on takeoff, then you've got a full view of the traffic there, and what's slowing in the traffic. So because you're going to come around and position yourself and go for a crosswind and down to the that's the only logic I can see in it. And you can understand why, as I said, no, you've got to go to the right and not on the dead side of the circuit for that exact reason. I think that's about all, guys. Any more questions?
Yeah, just listening, Alan, if you hear someone coming in on a long final, they haven't even checked, they hear what's going on. Someone's coming in from a long way out.
Yeah.
They just call on long final.
Okay, you've got to call.
For them too.
You got to call before 10 miles.
Yeah.
With, who am I? Where am I? 10 miles you'd be to the east or northeast. 10 miles northeast at 1,500 inbound. Tracking for straight in approach runway 25 at Wongan Hills. Next call's at 3 miles. On final, 3 mile final, runway 25 straight in. Next call's at 1 mile. And that's it.
But Alan, it is under the new coming in the way with
It's still under negotiation. You can do it as long as you've got radio. You must have a radio. It was restricted.
I'm hoping that they'll do away with it because we have too many conflicts.
Yeah, I know.
Guys calling out at 10 minute tiles and then getting upset because we're turning files and we're only 500 feet from the threshold.
It's the difficulty with us because we're flying so slow, basically, relatively. And if you're punching into a 25 knot headwind like we were yesterday, 10 miles out there is going to take you about 15 minutes, potentially.
That's what I don't know if I'm correct or whatever, but if I'm coming in, been doing, I'll pull it at a 5 mile out, it's pretty slow, and I was only going to be there in 10 minutes. Is that what?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just get the information out there and let these people know. That's the bottom line. Really, you can't make too many calls as long as they're operational. You don't make stupid calls, but if they're pertinent and operationally necessary, in your opinion, because you're the pilot in command and they can never ever question that. It's the same as a safety issue. If you make a decision and use the grounds of safety, you can't go wrong. There's no one can do anything for you because they weren't there. It's all right for them to sit on the ground in the committee and say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, but they weren't there.
So when you call the time, do you call the time in the minutes that you might be there at 1, you say 2:0, or do you say I'm going to be there in 5 minutes?
No, if they can give an actual estimate, time 2:0, time 1:1.
Okay, yeah. So
It's minutes past the hour.
yeah, okay, that's just good.
Well, something else I noticed yesterday when listening in when I was on the road. Guys, with the advent of GPS, people out there in aircraft now have an expectation that when you call your distances from the airfield, that you're going to be absolutely accurate to 100 metres. So if you haven't got a GPS, I recommend you say estimated 10 nautical miles. Because otherwise, I have come across situations where people think everyone's got GPS and you can be real accurate, and they get upset when you say 10 nautical miles, but really you're 8.
9.5. Actually, at Caboolture, we're flying 1,000-foot circuits for two reasons: noise abatement and also to fit in with the rest of the traffic. And the point I suppose I'm making there is if you're flying into an airfield you're not familiar with, even though we're entitled to fly 500-foot circuits, it might be worth flying a 1,000-foot circuit if it's busy, just to fit in with the locals and not get them annoyed or upset or confused by everything you do. What do you got on that?
Council recommended in that situation that we did the 500 close-in circuit.
Yeah,
That's the majority too slow.
that's right.
Well, we get a fair bit of criticism.
The thing is that our stock standard circuit, because of our speed, is 500 feet AGL. GA in general, the rest of the fixed wings that use our airports are at 1,000 feet. High performance aircraft, in other words, aircraft that have got an airspeed of around about 180 knots on downwind, are supposed to be at 1,500 feet. So when you're at an airfield where they've got an RPT service using a Dash 8 or a Saab or something like that, those aircraft will be at 1,500 feet. 747 will do a circuit at 1,500 feet because that's the category that they're in. And obviously they're a lot further out. So you've got high performance out here at 1,500, lower performance here at 1,000, and gyros and the like down here at 500 feet. The differentiation, or the how can I say, the fly in the ointment are helicopters who will do an 800-foot AGL circuit. And they will be close in with us too. So it's important to fly accurately in the circuit so that you don't conflict with the helicopter who's only 300 feet above you. He's got to fly accurate. He's only 200 feet below the 1,000-foot traffic, although we're inside each other. So it all sorts of steps down like that, and obviously we like to stay close to the airstrip in case the dog fails that you can actually get down on things.
There's one thing I almost got cut down by a class, it's a Navajo or something or other. In Wollongong, I thought I was well outside my circuit and we were taking off into the wind on a cross strip, and it's about 700 feet, sort of climbing out, and this Navajo came in at 700 feet downwind for the main strip, and we were 100 or so metres apart, and it made me realise that my 500-foot circuit had to extend much further out in that situation because, well, he was way out below where he should have been, but I was climbing up into his area too, and it was rather scary.
Well, I guess it's the same if you're departing an airstrip. This is just from a safety point of view. Let's say we're going 1.25 here, and our track takes us to the south here. Really, what you ultimately desire to do is that, and join your track like that. But because we've got surface traffic here, and you may be climbing up to, let's say, 2,500 to 3,000 feet, you could conflict with all these guys, particularly the high performance ones. So technically you've got two options. Actually you've only got one. You come over here and maintain, it says in the book 500 feet above your circuit altitude, then you can turn on track, but that's not practical in our sense. because of the fact that once you get to 1,000 feet, you're now turning back around this way to join track, conflicting with all the traffic. So I say to the guys, get 2-3 miles away in this direction here, and then set course, or alternatively, come out here a mile or so, get to your 1,000 feet and then turn into the downside, continuing to turn, into the dead side rather, continuing your turn and coming across there. They're the only really the two ways to safely do it. Once again, if someone pings you, say you shouldn't be doing a right-hand turn up here, say, well, I was bloody circuit height plus 500 feet, there was no traffic, I broadcast my intention. Turning right to join outbound track overhead the field. Too easy. But then you'd make sure you're above 1,500 feet at that point. So anyone that's manoeuvring on the dead side, join the circuit, you'll be above there.
Alan, you didn't mention anything about departure radio as well.
Yeah, there's a standard departure call that you give when you're departing the area. Once again, it's Wongan Hills traffic. It's RO747. Departed Wongan Hills at pick a time 01. Tracking where you're going to. Tracking 310. Climbing 3,500, Wongan Hills. Start and finish with Wongan Hills, too easy. But you've already told them that, you're airborne now. You're airborne and you've left the circuit area. So you're actually out here now when you make that call there. So when you're here and you're lined up, you're lining up, rolling runway 25 for departure to the south. So you get airborne, they already know that. That's where they expect to see you here. So you come up here, either that way or that way. Then you get to this point here, check your time, make an adjustment for your overhead time that had you come over the top that you would have departed, and that becomes your departure time. So at this point here, it might be time 04 there, but you estimate it would have taken you 3 minutes to get from there to there, so your departure from Wongan Hills was 01. Departed Wongan Hills at 01, tracking 310, well in this case is tracking 180, climbed to 3,500. Wongan Hills, that's it. There's no limit on that. As close you mean, how close? No limit. As long as it's not conflicting any other traffic. You can come in and do that one there. You can come in over that way and do that if you want it. But you've got to give yourself time to give a base call and a final call as well. If you're that close and you can't get a separate, I've often used turning base final. Full stop runway 25.
You use the word short, turning short final. It just gives the other line a bit of a clue that you're
Yeah, well, use whatever you think is appropriate at the time, as long as the call is made at that point.
risk turn over the boundary mentally and gather, and I was what I call doing a short final.
Yeah, short final, that's fine.
It just gave other guys, they continued on because they knew I was in and out. Yeah.
The difficulty with this thing here is legally at the moment you can't do it, because you've got to be established on final, not below 500 feet by, established on final 500 metres before the perimeter, or the threshold, or the perimeter of the airfield. So for us, that means that, 500 metres is out here somewhere, and you've got to be there at 500 feet, and you can't descend below 500 feet until you're there, which is stupid for us.
Yes.
Because, we can come around here and be established on final at 100 feet quite safely.
On the intense.
Yeah, that's right. But I'm just telling you, look, I do it, you guys will do it, I see you doing it today. Just be aware that currently is the rule. We're hoping to get that removed, to make no limitations on it. I couldn't agree more. Once again, if someone said, well, look mate, you're supposed to be this, that and the other, he said, well, on the grounds of safety and for separation purposes, I elected to do that. Not many people. Council won't ping you for it, we won't ping you for it. We don't want to ping you for it, anyway. We're not bloody policemen. Yeah.
Question on this one. For departing here, right?
Yeah.
Now you say you're going to climb down, you're at 1,500 here now. Right?
You should be climbing to 3,500.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If you come
GPS, I use 3 miles.
Yeah.
Because there's not many high performance aircraft that will be outside 3 miles from the runway.
All right. Yep. No, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Alan, with this, where they're going to reduce the number of calls that you're required to do, that's not been actually brought in yet?
No, it'll all come in, all this stuff will come in with the CAOs.
Right.
I might just touch on that for a minute, guys. We're currently negotiating, mostly Mark actually, with CASA about a rewrite of the CAOs. The reason being that you've heard of years ago Part 149, or CASR, Part 149 and 103, which is going to fix up all the anomalies in all the CAOs applicable to sport aviation. Those two CASRs, which is a Civil Aviation Safety Regulation, would replace the current CAOs that we use, Civil Aviation Orders 9512 and 12.1. However, that was put well on the back burner in CASA's eyes because we're extremely low priority, and they had higher priority, they reckon. But in the interim, they've realised that we've had major problems. For example, you're not allowed below 500 feet within 100 metres of a public road. They forgot to put in, when they wrote that, except during takeoff and landing. So it means that if you've got a public road running down the perimeter of an aerodrome that's 50 metres from the aerodrome, you can't take it, you can't land, because you're going to be below 500 feet within 100 metres of that bloody road. That's stupid. So that's one of the anomalies that we're getting fixed. We're clarifying the private mustering. Commercial mustering at this stage, we've had a go at them. It's been totally unsuccessful, but we've got cards up our sleeve down the track. We want to progress the current amendments to the CAOs, which will address many of the anomalies that we experience at the moment, and that will be the time when the radio procedures and any of this sort of stuff will change. But I don't want to go into that right now because it's not finalised. Yeah.
The next magazine's got an extensive article called Gyro Law in it, and that's coming out in a couple of weeks' time. And it tells you the current regs and then the proposed new regulations. And then the new regulations are overwhelmingly positive for the recreational gyro user, and CASA has agreed to bring into those regulations the private definition of aerial stock mustering, which is currently in CAO 2910 for those who want to look at it, and that's overwhelmingly positive too. But anyway, the article's quite lengthy and probably dry and boring, but you can read up on it and put it up on legislation.
Written by a lawyer, was it?
Yeah,
to read it.
And in fact, if you read the fine print of the current exemptions, even Wongan Hills here is not suitable for gyro operations because, of course, this is within 500 metres of the perimeter of a town. But don't worry, guys. There's not a chance in hell that CASA would move on us for this event. So,
There's another area there which potentially is grey, and we like them that way, is the fact that the definition of a closely settled area is changed. In the past, we haven't been allowed to fly over cities or towns. It's now going to be changed. You're not allowed to fly over a closely settled area. And the definition of a closely settled area is an area where, in the event of an engine failure, you can't land the gyroplane without damage to persons or property on the ground. So you can fly from football field to football field.
yeah. That's overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, yeah. You can fly right over the centre of Sydney if you can get a clearance legally, but we can't do that now. And then, as Mark said, this ridiculous 500 metres from a town, from the perimeter of a town, you can't even bloody define the perimeter of the town because it depends on which map you use. So, I mean, we fixed that. Hopefully, we fixed that.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of positive there.
There's the new instrument, as they call it. CASA have been very good actually, because early last year we suggested, look, why can't you change the regulations by way of an instrument under Regulation 3081, which is, legal to talk. And they agreed. They say, okay, well, we will do an instrument under 3081 of general application. And then there has been this genuine process of negotiation backwards and forwards. And in fact, they have come to the party in most of the areas. And really, I'm very, very pleased with the outcome. but the only people who are still left somewhat out in the cold are the people we call contract musterers, people who don't own the land they're mustering over. And, but overwhelmingly for the recreational gyro user, the new instrument, which will be signed into law within the next three months or so, is overwhelmingly positive.
Mark, if a musterer leases a station,
Yeah.
legally drawn up, I'm leasing that
Yeah,
station.
they're occupying.
That's right, well, can he draw a lease up on anyone's station?
Well, the concept of occupation is very flexible within law, and indeed, I'm sure a creative lawyer will be working on that. But, you know, it may well be that a broad definition of occupation may well be that if you have your swag unrolled at a station and you're camping there for 2 weeks, and you've got full approval and the support and endorsement of the owner, who, you know, wants you to help him out in some way, shape or form, well then he might consider you an occupier.
Thank you very much to the ASRA board members who've made the trip across. This is the first time we've had an opportunity to hold the Nationals here, and first time for us to have ASRA board. Gyros in Western Australia is a fairly, I suppose, broad group of people. We range from Kununurra in the north right through to Albany in the south. I think last count we had something like 70 ASRA members. We haven't had a fantastic turnout, but a lot of that is due to the sorts of weather conditions people have been seeing in the northwest, and all sorts of other reasons obviously. But nevertheless, the numbers haven't been fantastic from a ASRA perspective. The numbers have been fantastic from, I suppose, a camaraderie perspective. A great opportunity to sit down and network with people from all over the place, talk about gyros and generally have some fun. So I think, you know, that's what it's all about. So thank you very much for attending. And I'm going to sort of leave those speeches to one side and get into some of the trophy aspects of it. You know, one of the things of coming together is to have some competitions, and the competitions are serious on one side and fairly light-hearted on the others. We spend, from an organising perspective, quite a bit of time looking at those sorts of things and obviously judging. And most of the competition work took place today. The weather today has been fantastic. It's never been the same way once. So, you know, I watch some people hang right back, try and be last so they can get a bit of advantage, but it didn't necessarily work that way. So, third place today, precision bombing, Michael Waldron.
Hey, stay still.
So Michael, hold it up, come on.
The right way. That way. Not the east anymore.
Well done, mate.
Probably need
Okay. Second place in precision bombing goes to another guy who's travelled a fair distance. Fair enough, he didn't fly, he towed the gyro, but I do know from talking to him and his daughter, they had a pretty intrepid trip. And Jim Farnworth, outstanding mate. Precision bombing, first place, Jamie Wolf.
Speech.
You know, the day was pretty full on by that point. The navigation exercise that I originally planned, you know, in my head I thought we'll be right by 2 o'clock. We'll get everyone into that, and I had a fairly large exercise planned. I thought would take people at least 2 to 2.5 hours. Time wasn't there, a bit of poor planning on my part, but we were able to cut that back to what I think is a fun exercise, especially considering the winds. And I know it's one of those things, navigation, which really tests people at time. And I've got to say across the board that most people were very accurate. In fact, they were within 10 minutes, I think the worst case was 10 minutes out of their predicted times. So when you consider most people were within sort of 4, 5 and 6 minutes, they did really, really well. Third place, navigation exercise, Jamie Wolfe. Second place on the navigation exercise, and it gives me great pleasure for this one because one of the extra questions I said to people is you get some bonus points if you can get me the telephone number of the company. Bruce Lake, second place. He went inside one of the trucks and got the phone number of the
I left about 3/4 of an hour after everybody else, and and when I got there, the judge said, "What do you stop for?" I said, "I'm trying to find the phone number." I said, "What? You're the first one that's asked about it." So yeah, but we've got the 3 sat phone numbers off the board in the workshop, and then no, we better get the one for the aviation company, so we went into the truck.
Wait till I ring up Dunny, who runs Dunn's Aviation, and tell him that all his workshops were open. And all that sort of stuff. Okay. First place of the navigation exercise is going to go to another familiar name tonight. When you look at it, he was pretty much 1 to 2 minutes spot on every task that we asked him to do. He didn't get the phone number, but he could tell us what the business was and all those sorts of things. And when you look at the timing, it was really spot on. Considering the distance he's flown to get here, Grant McFarlane.
GPS, I guessed what the business was. I didn't land. I didn't know he was supposed to land.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have kept that quiet.
Now, before I get on to the next one, I just want to also comment on another thing. Those of you that have got those trophies, you'll notice your name's already on it. Okay. One of the things I've noticed over the last half a dozen or so nationals I've been to, people get awarded trophies and sometimes it takes them a year or 2 before their name's on it. Now, Mark Eady, where are you, Mark? This man rang me up a couple of weeks before the Nationals and said, Adrian, how can I help? Now, not only did he help us with the trophies and bring his printer machine so we could put the names on it today, but he also provided the support in terms of all the signs you see about around the place and the great big banners. You know, if it wasn't for the effort from Mark, we wouldn't have had that sort of professional feel to the activity. So Mark, thank you very much. Okay. Look, it's little things like that. There's a lot of other people that I can name. I've been doing and things like that really make this event what it is. So it's been fantastic. Now the last trophy that I've got here, and I've probably now talked 16 minutes more than I intended. So the people will be waiting to serve the food. This is the Azra Steve Compton Memorial Trophy. Now Steve's a guy that I had the pleasure of meeting many years ago. He was a long-serving treasurer and person involved with Azra for a long time. This trophy is awarded for the overall best performer at the Nationals. It also takes into account airmanship. It's that whole question about doing the right thing at the right time. Paying particular attention, helping other people and those sorts of things. And guess what? Mark McFarlane.
How are you going to carry that out?
Now we weren't able to engrave this because this needed different technology, but we'll make sure it is, and we'll get it to you.
I'm speechless. I'm overcome. Like, I just can't believe that I've discovered gyros and now I've got an award like this. Wow.
Look, Luella just suggested I read the names on it, and I'll get my glasses out so I can read it. Yeah. I'll do that because I've seen a number of these guys over the years operate, and in some cases, you know, being part of their activities as well. And it's a very esteemed group. I won't go through the list on the back from '87 to 2003 because there's too many of them. But in more recent years, we have people like David Bird, the legendary birdie in 2004. Ian Morecambe, our very own Ian, is here. 2009. Kevin Traeger, 2008. There's a number of people here trained by Kevin. Phil Sherwood in 2005. Joe, and I can never pronounce his surname.
Joe Alphabet.
Joe Alphabet. If you want to have a look at how it's spelled, come and have a look at the trophy. Jakovic in 2007, and Dave Stubberfield in 2006. Some very top people on this trophy, and Grant now finds himself there as well. Look, I'll be quiet now.
Hey!
I'll hand over to the president of Azra, who's going to say a few words. But,
You didn't tell me this.
should be short and sweet, mate.
Yeah, well, just on behalf of the Azra board, I'd like to thank Adrian and the team of the, I'll get this right, Superlight Aircraft Club of Western Australia.
That's the one.
Okay, for going to the trouble of doing all this. It's not a small effort, and also to the people that made the effort to come across from wherever to be here. It's been one of the best that I've been to, and we'll see you somewhere else next year.
That's all the speeches we got for tonight, but please, ladies and gents, I think the food's on its way fairly soon. Enjoy the food and the mingling, and have a look around the museum. Really I hope to still see a lot of you tomorrow.
I think